Hey everybody again, welcome to our second video and our second flipped homework and our second flipped classroom session. For the last week or so we've been talking about data and we've been talking about different types of surveys and different ways that we can gather data and reduce bias. What we want to look at today in this lesson, actually lessons 1.3 and 1.4, is getting beyond the first impression. Now some of you might remember the day in class where we had on the board all the colors on the screen, but the word was in a different color. So the word red might actually be in blue, and the word yellow might actually be in green. And you had to try to say the color, and then I asked some of you to say the word. And how we had to get beyond that first impression, how our mind was kind of playing tricks on us and getting us to say different things. Same thing with surveys, and we've been collecting information. Well, how do we now get beyond what we first think? The surveys that we did in class for Mrs. Helema, and we looked at what kind of pop we should have in the vending machine, or kind of drinks rather, we had to get by the first impression. It was a fairly clean-cut survey, and we got our data, but how do we get past it? How do we now take the data, look at it, and draw a conclusion? So how do I first of all get beyond that first impression and go, wow, everybody wanted chocolate milk in the vending machines? We're going to start by looking at a few of these. A few optical illusions. This is a fairly famous one, and I want you to take a look at it. What do you see? How many of you right away saw the young lady, or how many of you see the older lady? If you can't see either one of them for right away, pause the video, have a look. If you see the young lady, have a look for the old lady. If you see the old lady but can't see the young lady, pause, see if you can find the young lady. If there's somebody around you, have them look at it with you and get their first impression of the data. So get their first impression of this picture. This is one of my favorite ones. Are the gray dots really there? Look at the spot where all these boxes and all these lines intersect, or where these lines meet. When I look at it, I see a whole bunch of little gray dots or white dots until I focus on a spot. If I focus on one, that one disappears and the rest of them are all over the place. But then when I focus on another spot, so for instance if I focus right here, that one's gone, but I see gray dots in other spots, like for instance here. But then I focus on it and it's gone, and I see that one back up there again. So getting beyond the first impression, what are we really seeing? So draw a conclusion there for what are you really seeing at this picture. Next one. A famous artist by the name of Escher. He does a lot of sketches. Now this is a kind of a poor quality picture, but you get the idea. He does a lot of pictures like this, a lot of these illusions. Are these stairs even possible? Pause the video for a second and almost run your finger on it on the screen, or try to run your mouse over it and kind of say, is this possible? While it looks like they connect, just think to yourself, is this possible? And I want you to get by the first impression that, wow, these stairs always go up, or wow, these stairs always go down. So we're getting by our first impression. Next one. This one's going to trip you out a little bit with just some, your mind's going to, and your eyes are going to go a little buggy, and you're going to go, oh, what is this? There's something missing. So just have a look at it and try to follow it and try to see the whole picture. This is a very, very old optical illusion. So I just want you to have a look at it for a second and try to see, is it really there? Again, pause it as you need to so you can have a better look. I'll move on to the next one. I like this one a lot. Just a simple little bike. We've got two wheels, we've got kind of a frame, and our handlebar going up. It looks, well, have a look at it. What do you think it's doing? I know when I look at it and I don't focus on anything, the wheels look like they're spinning. However, if I focus on one of the circles with all the colors, it seems to stop. But if I look away and just kind of focus on the whole, or kind of get the whole picture, they seem to be spinning. But they're not. They're stationary pictures. Your mind is playing tricks on you, your eyes are playing tricks on you. Next one. Are the tabletops the same size? Have a look at it. Stop it. Get your ruler or get a piece of paper that you can measure it with. I want you to look at it. I want you to figure out, are the tabletops really the same size? So please pause this one. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Hit play when you're ready. On the last few slides, we looked at getting beyond the first impression. So what are things telling us? What are the results telling us? Lesson 1.4, and I'm tying these in together because they fit really well. We're going to try to draw conclusions from the data. What can we find out from this data? We're just going to get a few terms and definitions. So if you can get your handout out for this one and fill in the blanks. We want to look at judging the validity of data. And what we mean by validity is it true? Is it valid? First term, motivation. Why was the data collected? Let's even look here at who is collecting the data. Let's look at why they are collecting the data. If I am a dentist and I want to promote sugar-free gum, well, I might recommend a gum that is sugar-free to my patients. That might be my motivation. So we also need to look at, why was the data collected? What's the survey for? Our next one is the method. The sampling procedure or the selection process. How many people were asked? How was the sample selected? Was it random? Was it stratified? Was it clustered? Or was it a convenience sample? If you don't remember what some of these definitions mean, random, stratified, clustered, or convenience, go back to our last note where we did some of these definitions, or check it out in EDSB. I think that's lesson 1.2. The next part, or the next term, is observations. The actual data that's collected. What are we observing? What are we realizing, and what are we understanding from this data? The reasoning process. How did we go from the data to get our conclusion? So how do I take all this information in? How do I look at it? How do I reason with it, or how do I judge it? How do I make sure it's valid? How do I interpret it? We had some of those words on our very first note. So how do we interpret? How do we explain our conclusion? Next one is error. So any source of error or bias. And we've talked about bias a lot. Again, if you need to go back and check out a definition, go back to, I think that was lesson 1.2 for bias. Last definition is conclusion. What is the conclusion, or what is the result or outcome that we can draw from this data? So if we were to interview 1,000 dentists and 900 of them said, yes, my patients should chew sugar-free gum, or our conclusion then would be that 9 out of 10 dentists recommend sugar-free gum. So that would be a conclusion that we could make. We'll talk more about some of these terms, and you'll see them in practice when we get back to class and we actually get back and start applying some of the stuff and looking at it. Again, if you need to go back, feel free and rewind the video. Feel free and pause the video at any point and check it out again. I'll see you in class.